So as some of you guys know, I have been covering the Richmond off-season pretty religiously in 2025 so far, and I've posted a ton of videos basically talking about, what coffee order Caleb Smith is making today, how many shit Sam Lawler decided to take in a 2-day stretch. I don't know where I'm going with that joke, but what I'm trying to say is here, I've been talking a lot about the Richmond Football Club. So I thought, you know what, let's do something a little bit interesting. I've done it a couple times so far on this channel and kind of combine a couple videos and create a longer format style video for you guys and just go over a lot of the things that has happened in the off season so far. So again, before we do get into it as well, there's still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and leave a like on this video, subscribe for all the latest, AFL content, AFL news, Richmond content, all the above. And I guess without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So as most of you guys who are Richmond fans probably know, the Tigers had a really weird and strange 2024 AFL draft. I mean, there was a lot of really weird and strange things about it. You could first point at the fact that before the draft started, the Tigers had traded away like 1,988 different players, therefore giving themselves 8 picks in the 2024 AFL draft, most of which were very high picks, and high picks that we've never even really seen teams have the capital for unless they're a foundation team like GWS or Gold Coast, or other weird situations like the unfortunate passing of the Richmond recruiting manager, Chris Toche. Now, in my whole entire life of watching professional sports, and I really don't think this was talked about enough in the AFL, it was really swept under the rug, I feel like, but I've never ever seen an established sports team have their recruiting manager or the guy who is mainly drafting the players pass away, not only throughout the draft process, but pass away literally like a week before the draft actually happened. Again, it was a really weird situation. I feel like the media didn't talk about it enough, that the Tigers, had to go into this draft without their recruiting manager, a guy who emotionally a lot of the recruitment team would have loved and would have literally worked months and months with, but a guy who was given the job to helm Richmond's future. Of course, he passed away, and it is very sad, but Richmond had to continue on the draft, and they had to get a man to replace him, and they never really did. They kind of just had, of course, their list manager doing all the work, as well as their Victorian recruiting manager, Ry Geishan, who of course actually played a really big part in this draft, and he was the guy who ultimately would go on to select most of the players. Again, in saying all of that, Richmond needed a new recruiting manager, and they've decided to stick to their guns, hiring Ry Geishan to officially do the job. With Richmond saying that the football club has officially appointed Ry Geishan as the club's new national recruiting manager. Geishan has been an important part of Richmond's recruiting team for the past 2 years since joining the club as Victorian recruiting manager early in 2023. Across close to 15 years working in the AFL industry, Geishan has held talent and operational roles at the AFL, AFLCA, AFL Victoria, and the Northern Knights. Geishan was also the director of football and first XV111 coach at Melbourne Grammar School for 2 seasons between 2020 and 2023, following his time as the Knights talent manager. Richmond General Manager of Football Talent Blair Harley said the club felt that Geishan was ready to step into the new role. Ry did an outstanding job in assisting and guiding the recruiting process in the preparation for last year's national draft, he said. He has had a strong grounding in the AFL industry, having played a variety of roles in both talent and operations. All of this combined with the experience he has gained in the past 2 years with our recruiting department has given him a solid base as he continues to grow and develop further. Richmond's 8 selections at this year's Telstra AFL draft, including 6 in the first round. The club currently holds a further 2 first-round picks amongst its 2025 draft board. So yeah, pretty big news that the Tigers ended up finding their guy, because it's really important that they have not only a guy that they can trust and know is going to do a good job, which he absolutely looks like he did with 2024. Again, time will tell, but it looks like he did an amazing job. But they needed a really, really good and experienced guy now who has helped with the Tigers the last 2 years, has done a ton of different work in a bunch of other different fields to come in, because they have arguably the most important drafts we've seen from an AFL team in a long time. 2024, you had 8, selections, 7 of them basically being first round picks, while in 2025, Richmond are most likely going to have pick number 1 if they do, of course, finish last, which many people tip them to, of course, do, and a top 5 pick that the Tigers should hopefully get from North Melbourne, which again, we know that they have that pick. They traded for North Melbourne's future first. It's just depending where North finish. So let's just say that North finished 16th. Richmond will have picks 1 and 3 in the 2025 AFL draft. Literal domination. And that's not even to talk about the rumored father-son or 2 that the Tigers might have in 2025. Again, I know that sounds like a lie, because Richmond never have any father-sons, but there have been a couple of rumored, reported father-sons that the Tigers could be potentially having this year, as well as the Tigers trading for other first-round picks. We've heard from a bunch of different leaks and news and reporters all around the world, like Mr. Worldwide and Pitbull, that the Tigers could reportedly be trading their 2027 and 2026 first-round picks to try and add to 2025. Again, I don't think they'll trade their 2026, but considering AFL teams can now trade 2 years in advance on future first-round picks, again, I think the Tigers will be throwing that 2027 first-round pick to end up trying to get another first-round pick in 2025. I would not even be surprised, because, yeah, the Tigers want to hit this talent early. They want to get in now, and it's good that they've got their guy in Rye Gation. Again, I think Gation will be tasked with probably taking at least 3 more first-round picks this year. Maybe even another rookie pick or a rookie pick after that. Maybe the Tigers might trade future 3rd or 4th to get back into the 3rd round this year. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers had like another 5 picks. If we take all that into account, let's just say Tigers have another 5 picks. That means he will have basically taken around 13 players in 2 years. And that's not even to talk about the probable free agents that the Tigers might be bringing in 2025 as well, with all of the salary cap that we're going to have. So this is a lot of really interesting news. It's good that the Tigers have done this, and I'm very excited to see who Rye actually goes on a draft in the future. So as many of you guys probably know, I'm a massive Richmond Tigers fan. I think that's an understatement. I absolutely bleed yellow and black. I've gone for them ever since I was a little kid. I would literally give my left nut up for Dustin Martin if he asked for it, which he probably never will, but maybe one day if he did, I would potentially do it. But obviously, I'm a massive Richmond fan, and I love to make Richmond videos on YouTube. And I feel like there are definitely a couple of established channels, myself included out there, who like to make Richmond content. But of course, there's a couple out there who make exclusive Richmond content and don't talk about really any other teams. And one of them that I think actually does a very good job, just in the video or 2 I've watched of them, does actually happen to be the Big Footy Tiger Cast channel, which some of you guys have commented saying I should collaborate with. And again, it could definitely be something we should do maybe down in the future. But they actually made a video which I wanted to furthermore elaborate on and give my thoughts and opinions on, because I thought it was very, very interesting. Now, they actually have like this live show podcast thing that they do where they, of course, answer some questions, give out some news that they've heard. Again, there's some of the guys that they have on their channel who reportedly have some potential Richmond insides here and there. Inside scoops, that is. I'm not trying to talk about their insides. That'd be a that'd be a weird ass thing to talk about. But yeah, some of them seem to be pretty credible, and they go on to talk about a lot of really interesting things. And one of the topics I actually talked about the other day was potential free agents that Richmond will be looking at in 2025. Again, for those of you who don't know, this year in 2025, Richmond are probably going to have some of the most salary cap space we have nearly ever seen in the AFL. Again, in 2024, Richmond had Dustin Martin's contract expire, which was the highest paid contract in the AFL on about $1.5 million. They also traded away Shea Bolton, who was the, I think, 6th highest paid player on $1.1 million. So that, frees up about $2.6 million. They also didn't re-sign Baker. They moved on Rioli, moved on Graham, all of the above. So they moved on from all of those guys. And of course they would have just, been like, well, who do we give the money to? We have to actually fill out the salary cap. So you got guys like, Noah Bolter and whatnot, who are probably really, really highly ended salary-wise on their first year of their new contract. But in saying that, they've probably got about $3 million or so of really flexible money to use. And that's not even talking about Tom Lynch's contract expiring this year, who's on about $1.6 million. I think he's the highest paid player of 2025. Dion Prestige is apparently still on like 700, 800, I think. That will be expiring. They've got a ton of salary cap to use. So they're going to be going after a lot of really, really big free agents. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to bring in a couple for 2026. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Some of the free agents that the Tigercast channel, of course, talked about, and my thoughts and opinions on whether or not we should get them, or would they come to us type thing. So the first free agent I wanted to talk about, and a guy who I think Richmond could probably be the most likely, I think, to get, does happen to be Tom De Koning from Carlton. Of course, De Koning is going to be a free agent ruckman who I think is heading into his prime and could become a top 5 ruckman in the AFL in 2025. Again, it has been reported he has said that he wants to stay at Carlton and wants to, he's actually talking with Carlton right now on a new contract. But I genuinely believe with Richmond seeing Nankervis, start to go into his 30s now, probably going to be regressing a little bit, I genuinely believe they are really going to be targeting getting a new ruckman, this off-season, whether that's a young guy to develop behind Nank for a couple years, or a guy like Tom De Koning, who is going to absolutely be looking for a payday. Now, Carlton's salary cap right now is about as tight as, well, I don't think I can say that on YouTube without getting demonetized, but it's very, very tight. And you've got a guy like Tom De Koning, who is absolutely going to be entering his prime, going to be, I think, 100% a top 5 ruckman this year. Hopefully for him, even pushes for All-Australian, who's going to be looking for a massive payday. And even though I know he loves it at Carlton, I just don't think that the Carlton Blues are going to be able to afford him. So I think that's where Richmond come into play, and they're definitely going to have to give him more than 5 years. The average contract to bring in a player nowadays is like 6 to 7 years, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Tigers did that. You also got to look at the fact that Richmond are going to have a ton of salary caps, even though a guy like De Koning, who absolutely loves Carlton and wouldn't want to go into a rebuilding phase again with a team, is probably going to be getting an offer from Richmond, which is going to be like $900,000 plus. A deal that he's just, I don't think, going to be able to refuse. I don't think Carlton are even going to be able to match it. They're not going to be able to even think about it. And I think De Koning would be an absolutely perfect fit. If the Tigers can bring in a lot of these good young players through the draft, bring in good free agents, they might not be in this rebuild phase for as long as a guy like Tom De Koning actually thinks they would be. And not just that, I think that he and Nank can actually coexist in the same team. We've seen Nank coexist with Ivan Soldo, and De Koning definitely can go down and play a lot better of a forward role than what Ivan Soldo can. So we could literally be seeing the Tigers roll with a double ruckman in 2026 if they do get De Koning. Again, another guy who was spoken about on the channel does happen to be Matt Rao. Again, I've talked about this before. Matt Rao has gotten interest, I believe, from Collingwood and Hawthorn, and a lot of Victorian teams are really trying to get him, not just because they think that they could get him, because it's Gold Coast and a lot of players leave Gold Coast. But I think a lot of teams are looking at the Gold Coast Suns right now who haven't exactly been too hyped on how Matt Rao has progressed as a player. And they're probably thinking, look, the Suns are going to be absolutely stacked in a year or two through the midfield. They're not going to be wanting to overpay to keep a guy like Matt Rao when you've already got Anderson, who's a better player than him. Zeke Euland will probably overtake him eventually when he gets drafted because, again, he's like the number one prospect of 2025. Some people believe even Tuke Miller's better than him. A couple other players here and there will probably start to come through. And even though they might not be better than Matt Rao or ever become better than Matt Rao, the Gold Coast Suns don't want to be paying Matt Rao a ton of money and get tied up in the same mistakes that they always have, where they pay a guy for a long-term deal just because a Victorian team wanted him, so now they have to overpay. And I do think Richmond will be interested, although I don't think we should go after Matt Rao. Don't get me wrong, I like Matt Rao as a player, but I definitely think there are so many better midfielders out there, and the Tigers are already very one-dimensional in that midfield right now. To me, I would rather throw a crap ton of money at a guy like Harley Reid, who, even though you're probably not going to be able to get, that would be awesome. Throw a crap ton of money at a guy like Zach Butters, etc., etc. Players who can play different type of midfield roles, also play different positional roles, instead of Matt Rao, who's just that typical inside contested clearance inside midfielder. A guy like Harley Reid who could push forward, or a guy like Zach Butters who can play on the outside and I think is much more clean, would be a better option in my opinion than Matt Rao for the Tigers. Again, on that, the guy I just mentioned earlier, Harley Reid. He's not a free agent in 2025, but as we know, sometimes rookie contracts absolutely mean nothing, and you could basically say this dude's a free agent if he doesn't end up putting pen to paper with West Coast. Again, I'll say it as nice as I think I can. I'm pretty sure Harley Reid's going to re-sign with West Coast, and I think he's going to re-sign on like probably 10 years, 20 million. It'll be like the highest paid deal. Again, what that guy did in his first year was absolutely insane. The explosiveness of him is crazy, and I think in a couple years, this guy's going to be one of the best players in the AFL, and I wouldn't be surprised even if in 2025 he takes a massive step and starts to average like 21 disposals, 22 disposals, and kicks over a goal a game. Really be that hybrid midfield forward, and then one day he does the 26 disposals and a goal a game, which is like the Brownlow contention. I wouldn't even be surprised. But considering he's from Victoria and he still hasn't re-signed that long-term deal just yet, we got to talk about him because there is apparently a lot of interest there by Richmond. And realistically, yeah, he would fit in Richmond's midfield. He'd fit in any midfield. The crazy thing is, not only is he a good contested inside player who can kick a goal, but no one talks about this man having insane speed, insane burst, lateral quickness. This dude's a fast guy. I mean, he can absolutely, bolt away from packs. The Tigers need some speed in their midfield. They also need some class. Again, they added Lawler in, who's a very classy player, can use the ball well. Another guy like Harley Reid, even if you have to pay him so much money, would be awesome. But again, I think the Tigers should focus on that this year. Let's get all the picks done first and whatnot. 2026, I think, is the year that Richmond should maybe start looking at Harley Reid. I think Essendon will go for him, but I think he'll also re-sign with West Coast. So, wouldn't be surprised. The other guy they also talked about on the Tigercast channel, which I think is a free agent pretty soon, at the end of the year maybe, does happen to be Lohmann. Again, he became one of the better forwards in the AFL this year, really dominated in the grand final. Considering the Tigers have probably the weakest forward line in the AFL, the youngest forward line in the AFL, it'd be awesome to add a guy who can kick goals, put decent pressure on. He's a good marking option as well down there, just a really good complete player for his height and size. I would absolutely love Lohmann of the team, and if he has a year this year where he kicks like 31 goals or 30 goals, just over a goal a game. When you think about it, that would have been easily Richmond's leading goal kicker last year. That would probably be Richmond's leading goal kicker this year. I think it would be awesome to offer him like a 5-year deal. Get him to the team if you can. Again, I think he's going to love it in Brisbane though, and he just won a premiership with them, so I don't think he'll be leaving. But wouldn't that be a great option to probably go and get as well? So I might be making this video as an optimistic Richmond fan, but I also could be making this video as just a guy who is telling it as he sees it. And I think it's very obvious that for a long time, since 2020, I don't think Richmond have really had an off-season that has been that exciting, where Richmond players just haven't been able to stop talking about it. Did I say Richmond players? I meant Richmond fans. That'd be kind of weird if, like, Ryan Mansell was just talking non-stop about Tom Lynch's success with random people at the local RSL. That's not to say he's probably not. I mean, I would. But where I'm trying to go with this right now is we, of course, knew, in 2021's off-season, we could still be a chance to maybe make finals and do something again. But after the 3 flags and the players getting a little bit older and whatnot, there were predictions made that the Tigers might have a little bit of a slump. Again, in 2022, there was a lot of hype because we had a really big draft and we wanted to get back into the finals really bad. That ended up all happening. But the 2023 season, the off-season with that, the 2024 season, the 2024 off-season, were all obviously very disappointing, and there wasn't a lot of hype and really that much to look forward to. For the most part, I think most people kind of thought we were going to be bad. Even with the inclusions of Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper, there was some optimism. But then when a lot of the injuries started happening in the off-season, early on in the year, Tom Lynch broke his foot in like 18 different places. Yeah, it was a worrisome time for the Tigers. And I'm thankful we're all past that now, and I really do hope now we can start this rebuild and start doing something right and showing some good signs. And I think a lot is really pointing towards that in the 2025 off-season. Not only did we have a great draft, which I've covered a lot on this channel, a great trade period, I think, which I've also covered on this channel, but there have been a ton of things that have been happening as of late. Again, I'm not one who likes when players in, other teams fight. I think most of the time it's ridiculous, especially when you've got a team like Carlton who you see them in the off-season have players fighting like every single year. And obviously, I think most of the time it's a really bad look, especially on Carlton's part. It's like, why the hell do all your players hate each other and want to put each other in rear naked headlocks like prime Conor McGregor versus prime Khabib? Like, what the fuck? But on a team like Richmond, who has been constantly in the media in the whole entire 2024 by people like Kane Corn saying that the Tigers players don't care, the coach is way too easy on the players, there's no signs of improvement or really the players showing compassion and energy. It just, again, it looked like a lot of players had checked out, like Tim Taranto towards the end of the year, like especially Liam Baker and Shea Bolton and even Jack Graham. It's nice to see recently a little bit of care at training with Jaden Shaw and Ryan Mansell deciding to have a freaking MMA match in the middle of the field in front of everyone. Again, apparently Jaden Shaw tackled or got Ryan Mansell high, and Ryan Mansell was like, fuck this, I'm going to touch you more inappropriately than centre half bench's uncle did to him when he was a child, and I'm going to put my my fist into your throat while you're on the ground. And again, show a little bit of care, show a little bit of spirit, show a little bit of fight. Again, as I said earlier, I don't like when teams do this. I really don't, especially when it's teams like Carlton who do it almost every year. Again, it actually hasn't happened so far this year, but I'm pretty sure that's because half their players are injured. And when I first saw this, I wasn't really too happy about it either. But then I was sitting there for a second. I just remember thinking about all those times Kane Corns just, again, as I said earlier, roasted our coach, saying he's not, firing up. He's not mean enough at the players. Him saying that the players are all checked out, which for the most part was true. Him saying that the players just don't care enough. They don't try enough. All of the above. It's really good that a guy like Ryan Mansell, who is seeming like he's starting to become the heart and soul of the team, I think he's firing up. And this is him showing that I think he also really cares. Like, he got done high. He wants to put a bit of fire into it. He wants to show exactly what's going on. Again, I remember the 2017 Premiership team, for an example, how tough our team was. You'd have Jacob Townsend basically knocking Adelaide players out in the grand final. You'd have Josh Caddy, who was constantly in a fight like every week throughout the games, and it just got the boys up and about. Shane Edwards was there, one of the toughest players I've seen. Trent Cotchin was there, one of the toughest players I've seen, one of the best tacklers I've seen. We really don't have any of that right now at Richmond, except a guy like Ryan Mansell, who I think is starting to grow on me as a player, who was a really good tackler for us last year and showed a lot of good spirit, is apparently killing it in the off-season. And the boys look like they're showing a bit more fight. They look like they're showing a bit more spirit. And I'm hoping to say that this is all changing a little bit, and it might not be, you know, Mr. Nice Tigers anymore, and these Tiger players who are all checked out. Adam Uze looking like he doesn't give a shit and would rather work at Gloria Jeans. Instead, we've got players now who are showing compassion, showing spirit, showing a bit of fight. Players who actually want to be there, a ton of players. And I think this will hopefully mean like players like even Tim Turano, they can't have moments where they're checked out now. You've got these young 18-year-old guys who have just been drafted, who are absolutely giving it all in their off-season, really wanting to make a spot and be in the team. Again, if you decide to check out at any time and you're, you know, not playing good footy because of that, and you just don't care anymore, like what Graham did, for example, last year. Well, now you got players like these young guys we just drafted who are going to try and take your spot. We got Ryan Mansell now, who's certified himself in the team. Guys like Caleb Smith and Tyler Sonsi, who look like they really want to be in a consistent AFL team nowadays. This is only good for the Tigers, and I'm hoping this is going to be a little bit of a narrative change. I know this is all just off things we've seen in the off-season and one little fight, but we will truly see, the footy will tell. And if Richmond only win 1 or 2 games this year, I will be semi-disappointed in all of that. But if we can go on to win like 4 or so games with this really good young team, that shows me that they actually care and they want to be here. And we don't have any checked out guys like last year. Hopefully Uze, this means a lot more to him, and he's really truly showing that. Again, I'm excited to see. I could just be yapping in this video, but I had some spare time on my John Cena watch. You get it, because you can't see it. Yeah, spare time to make this video, so we're here. We're queer. I'm not even gay, I just needed something to rhyme with we're here. We're here making this video. If you enjoyed my little rant, make sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel for all those AFL content news. Subscribe to my gaming channel as well, which will be getting linked down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.